I always knew I wanted to start a business, but I never knew what it was going to look like. I told myself that I just needed a little life experience, or maybe the right idea was just going to come to me. So I waited years and years and didn't really feel like I was taking any action or creating anything. And it was 20 years into my career that I finally decided, all right, it's time to start a business. But even when I decided that, I had to play with, what's it going to be? How is this going to look? And then it took me another year and a half to quit my job and actually go into that business full time. So I think it's really hard to understand. It's easy looking back when you see backwards how I got here, but as I was in the moment, I was really trying to understand, how do I start this thing? Where do I go next? What is my next action? And it took me years to actually realize becoming a business owner. In hindsight, I probably could have accomplished it in a year if I really would have just focused down and been clear about what I wanted and taken action. So today we're going to talk about how to create momentum to that dream or that goal that you've been putting off.
This is Diary of a Worthy Pursuit,
where we talk about how to get what you truly want in life and in business.
So what was the trigger? What was the thing that made you step away from the decades of working somewhere else where you're just like, I got to do this on my own?
Yeah, so I think there were a lot of little things that added up, but the ultimate trigger for me to actually start an LLC, even when I was working full-time, I'd be like, okay, maybe I'll do a side hustle, was going through some hard times with my health.
Oh.
And, you know, when you kind of hit a crisis, for more or less, not to be dramatic, but you do reevaluate where you are in life, what you've accomplished, and really how much time do you have left and where are you going to go. I think you appreciate the gifts you've been given more. So in that moment, it's like, oh, shoot, I can either take ownership and make a change, or I can continue doing what I've always been doing, but there's a lot of things at risk if I don't make a change.
Yeah.
So that was the start
All right.
of the side hustle.
Okay.
But then I think how do I finally decide to quit my job and do this full time is this big up and down mental battle that at the end of the day, the what do they say, the straw that broke the camel's back, was really just being fed up with putting in 60 hours, not getting time with my family, not having my time align with my values.
All right.
And so the trigger was, I need freedom to spend my time with my kids in a way that I can influence.
Sure.
Especially, I think, as my kids were getting older and I felt like I was missing things.
So did you feel like that was, you don't have a choice? Because you could have just gone a different job, right?
Absolutely, I could. But I think what I knew about myself in that is that this is me as an employee.
Okay.
Because clearly I have proven that I'm a workaholic, not that the job necessarily matters, but more it's who I am in a job working for someone else.
Okay. So it's kind of a realization that this has to happen.
Absolutely.
This is a must.
Right.
So I feel like that alone right there, that's a great point to be when you want momentum.
Right.
Is that it's a have to, it's not a should, or a hopefully maybe someday, right?
Well, I think a lot of us
Evil
struggle
words.
with this distant dream syndrome, and I think that was my hang-up in all of this. That was my hurdle. I had these distant dreams, I'm going to own a business someday, but I didn't really take action because I didn't know what that was going to look like for me.
All right.
And so rather than just trying something and seeing if it worked or failed or whatever, it's just like, oh, I'll wait until I have it all figured out.
Ah.
And what I have learned in the past year now of having a business is that nobody has this figured out. You have to take a risk before you have any kind of confidence, and no one has all the confidence in the world. We're all just kind of navigating it as we go.
Right.
But to hear someone say that and to actually feel it and understand it are two very different things.
Yeah. The irony is we're telling people what to do, but in the end we don't have it all figured out.
Do as we say, not as we do.
Yeah, it's interesting. I met a woman, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, something like that. Just in my travels, whatever, and we're chatting, and she's like, oh, you have your own business? I'm going to start a business. And I was like, great, when? And she's like, I don't know, 5 years. And I was thinking, 5 years? What's going to happen in 5 years? So I asked her, like, why 5 years?
Yeah.
And she laid down exactly what you said. All of my problems will be gone by then, so that is the point that I can start my business. And I'm like, no, no.
Right.
You're going to kick that can down the road until you die. So maybe look at 5 weeks or 5 months at most, something like that, and get it started.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the perfect time to have a kid or get married.
Or buy a house.
Or buy a house, go on
Right,
vacation.
any
There's
of those
no
things.
perfect time. You just got to make it happen.
Right. And I have found in working with clients that we really overestimate what we can do in a day, but we really underestimate what we can do in 6 months or a year or 5 years. So really just taking action toward a goal, whatever that action looks like, will serve you better than being like, oh, I'll do it when I know exactly what the roadmap looks like. Newsflash, nobody knows what that roadmap looks like.
No, we have what we believe it's going to be, but then things change.
Right. It's this idea that like, everything's going to go, I'm trying to think of it for me, but for all of you, everything's going to go up and to the left, right? But that's not reality. You start up and then you take a U-turn and then you head this way and you take 3 steps back and then 5 forward and then you take a left that didn't work out. And it's never linear.
No, you can see, I can tell you from when I first started my coaching business.
Yeah.
It was draw in customers. And the whole goal was that I was going to draw what I was talking about, right? So I was going to have whiteboard, make videos and all this kind of stuff, giving business advice. Had the name, I thought it was kind of cool. I still think it's kind of cool. Anyways, I make my first video and I realize my back is to the audience and it's very difficult to think about business stuff or anything where you're really having to use your brain and draw because you're having to think about drawing.
Right.
And I remember my hand being with the marker on the whiteboard, and before when I was just drawing, it was easy. But then as I'm trying to talk and think at the same time, you're like, your brain just starts to smolder.
It doesn't work out the way you thought it would work out.
No.
Yeah.
So I had this big plan after I sold my first business to do this thing. That didn't work out, so then you have to shift gears. And then you think around with that. That doesn't work out, so you have to shift gears.
Yeah.
And it's a constant change based on where the market is and what you're willing to do.
Right.
Then I thought about, hey, man, I'll just travel the country or the world speaking. That'll be great. And then I had a kid. Got to dial that back.
Yeah, right.
So it's interesting how you have a map, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to absolutely positively stay with that map. Because if something changes, you have to be able to change with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like a road trip. You say, okay, we're going to go out west. And you can lay out the map, or running a business is a lot more like, hey, we're going to go out west and we're going to make it to Des Moines. From Wisconsin, we're going to make it to Iowa. And then from there, recalculating, we'll figure it out from there. From there, maybe we'll go up to see Mount Rushmore, right? Maybe that's completely out of the way. And then from there, we're going to go, jet over to Colorado, and then we're going to go down to Arizona and whatever it is. But figuring it out each step of the way is more like what it is to run a business than saying, I'm going to go from Wisconsin to California, and here's the exact route I'm going to take. Because newsflash, something's going to happen. You're going to get a flat tire. You're going to run out of gas. You're going to have to stop for the night. Things just happen. So I think ultimately it's about just call the next shot, right? It's good to have what is your Disneyland in mind, but just call the next shot and have some clarity, so then we can create some momentum and goals to help you get there, right? Because goals are dreams, but with a deadline and some action steps.
Right. So interesting, because you're talking about that road trip, and what is the big goal for the road trip? It's to have fun and adventure,
right? It's to have
right?
fun, yeah.
So does it matter if you take Highway 94 versus Highway 40 or something like that? So if 94 is under construction, that was your original plan, well, we got to take a different highway. But in the end, you're still having an adventure. You're still having fun.
Right.
So with my business, I had to think, what is my ultimate goal?
Yeah.
My goal is not necessarily to make videos. My goal wasn't even necessarily to share business advice. My goal was to have fun and make money.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there are other ways to do that? Probably are. Let's find another way.
Right.
So you just shift and think, what is the higher goal that you're after? And then you can figure out the ways to get there.
Yeah, I think the best goals end up giving us here's where I want to go. And I may not know the how I'm going to get there.
No, the how you'll figure out.
Right, because ultimately to to create some momentum, we just need to take action in one direction and then evaluate, right? So one of the ways to create momentum to a goal that you set, let's say, for example, we're going to use start a business as your goal, and you want to be able to take on your first client in, let's say, 6 months. I don't know. You might challenge me and say 6 weeks, but let's call it
6 hours.
Let's call it 6 months. All right. So if the goal is that I want to start a business in 6 months, first I have to set that as a goal, and then I have to keep that visible. So writing it out in a way that I see it every day, put it on a Post-it note, put it on your fridge, put it on your mirror, put it on the car dashboard, whatever. Because the more you see this thing, the more you internalize, cool, that's where I'm headed. Yeah, I know where I'm going. And then you start to filter your decisions and how you spend your time through the lens of that goal.
I like that. Because then you're constantly reminded of why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because not everything's going to be rainbows and moonbeams.
No.
Not everything's going to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because some stuff, I guess, like we talked about before, just has to get done.
Right.
And you have your eye on the prize of what you want.
There's some corporate clients that I work with where they set quarterly goals. They don't always get to decide what their quarterly goals are. If you're a leader, middle manager, and your goals are passed down from corporate, you may not get to decide what that goal is. But if you don't keep that front and center, it's really easy to get yourself lost in the weeds in the day-to-day. So regardless of if you're going to start a business or you're leading a team in a corporation, it's this idea that now what am I running at? What is this? So if you're not keeping it in all those other places, at least make sure before you start your week, you're looking at your quarterly goals. Before you start your day, oh yeah, that's right. If my goal is to grow the team from 5 to 10 in the next quarter, I better look at that so I know that this week I need to block out some time to do some interviews or write a job posting or whatever the thing is to filter what I'm going to do.
Oh, I like that. So you're figuring out what to do, but constantly asking why, or is it relevant?
Yeah.
Is doing that task relevant to my goal? Or
Yeah.
will this help get me closer to my goal?
Because I don't know about you, but have you ever gotten to the end of the week? I have, where I'm like, did I do anything this week that actually moved me forward?
There are days.
Yeah, right?
There are days.
I think we've all had them. I had one just a few weeks ago where I was like, I love networking. God, I think I've talked about this, but I love networking, and I end up doing 5-10 events in a week, and then I'm like, I didn't actually sit at my desk this week to do work because I was so busy networking, which is great to grow my business, but is that really helping me get to my quarterly goals? That might be questionable.
Right. Yeah, interesting. I guess I don't want to say wasted time, but I've spent a lot of energy maintaining what I had rather than advancing. Since there were so many fires to put out, which means you have to double back a little bit and create systems so that people are at least aware of what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So there have been times where you're like a rat in a cage kind of thing. We're pushing really hard. And an argument could be made that you were doing a lot of stuff, but you didn't necessarily advance towards your goal. But then you could also say, well, you didn't go backwards much.
But I think you bring up a good point in that systems can really help you create momentum and automate. I love this idea of automating your action and automating your success, because I think that making momentum is all about just taking incremental itty-bitty steps. Right? It's the whole tortoise and hare story of I'm going to make it there if I just take a little action every day. And so even if that little action for you means that this person becomes a little bit more self-sufficient, so then you can advance that goal in the future, that's a win.
Right. Huge win.
Yeah.
Huge win. Yeah. Systems are the name of the game, I guess.
I
Especially, I had a sign up in my office. What did it say? I'm trying to think exactly how it was worded. It was something like, all you have to care about is what you have to do right now. Something like that. I think it was simpler than that. But the idea was that if you look at all the stuff that you have to do to achieve whatever it is you're after, let's say starting a business, right? It's pretty vague. But there's so many things you have to do.
Right.
I think of starting a restaurant specifically, right? What do you have to do? We got a building, we got employees, we got food, we got equipment, the hood,
permits,
the inspecting, the permits, the insurance,
right?
The marketing, blah, 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 blah. If you think, okay, today I'm going to start a restaurant business, you don't even know where to start.
Right.
But if you're like, today, I'm going to get a license for this building to be a restaurant, or make sure that the zoning is correct, or something like that. That one little thing, do that today. And you do that every single day. You get that one little thing. And eventually, over the course of time, it'll be easy.
I think that that's where a lot of people get stuck, is they're like, I'm going to start a business. And they say, share your goals. So I just told 15 people that I'm going to start a business. but then you don't know what's next. I see
All
this
right.
as a huge problem for some people. They're like, okay, but so now what? Now what are you going to do? So yeah, that just, what would this look like if it were easy? What is the next best step that you can take today?
Next
And it
best
might
step,
be,
yeah.
I'm going to apply for the permit. It might be, I'm going to go out and look at buildings, or I'm going to look online at commercial real estate, or I'm going to ask my friends if they know of a good chef,
All
or
right.
ask, how do I even recruit a chef?
Yeah,
That's a
right.
step, right? So I think just the next best step is a good way to look at it. I don't have to conquer the world today. I just need to do at least one thing that's going to get me closer.
Fair. I love it. What else do we got on here? Bias for action. Tell me about that one.
Yeah, so I think that, again, if you share your dream over and over and over again, that's great, but it's just lip service. So
All
the
right.
way that you show others and you prove to yourself that you're really into that thing is by taking an action.
Oh,
So
okay.
that would be like, rather than just thinking about doing this thing, I'm going to do whatever little small thing it is and then acknowledge the fact that I did that, because then I can stack up 3, 4, or 5 actions and then look backwards and say, I thought I was growing a business, but I'm not making any progress. And you can say, wait a second. I acknowledge that I took that action and that action and that action. And then you start building some confidence in, oh yeah, I am doing this thing. I am making progress.
All right.
And when you acknowledge those steps, it's easier to build on them and create longer term momentum.
Yeah, I like that. I'm in the process of doing some light remodeling in an office.
Okay.
Got a tenant coming in, and I have this week to get it all done. It's still trinkety stuff. But fires happened on Monday.
Sure.
But I forced myself to go to that office and do something, even a
Yeah.
minimal something, because you got to get that momentum going. Otherwise, you'll just keep kicking the can down the road, and eventually the tenant will say like, "Hey, where are my keys?" And I'll just say,
Yeah.
"Hey, funny story, the office isn't done
Right.
because I had these other things going on."
Yeah.
So yeah, I had to force myself to go up there. It was very interesting, outsider looking in, or trying to be outsider looking in, at how much I was able to accomplish in a limited amount of time, knowing that it has to be done by Friday, and knowing that I'm the guy.
Yeah.
Like, no one else has been assigned the work, no one else is available to help, so like, I'm the guy.
Yeah. When you know the buck stops with you, when you have to take ownership, I think that is empowering, for better or worse. Not knowing
Yeah.
that you have help, but also knowing that it all comes back on you. Another mistake that I think people make when they're trying to create momentum toward it is they think about where they want to go as an achievement. I'm going to start a business in 6 months, right? Which is pretty vague. But
Sure.
rather than that, what if you created a habit of, I'm taking one action every day to become a business owner? And again, that's vague, but I'm going to
That's
show
good enough,
up.
though.
But I'm going to show up at the office every day and do one thing that will move me toward being able to have a tenant, right?
Right.
So rather than saying, oh, now I need to cram this out and I procrastinated and now I need to spend a whole Saturday and Sunday fixing up the building so it's ready for a tenant. Well, what if you created a habit of saying, I'm going to go Monday and do this little thing, Tuesday this little thing, and then you're just used to doing that and you're knocking off a little bit at a time, and it also feels more digestible. Like, it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
Yeah, when you take the chunks,
Right.
little chunks at a time, or even somewhat big chunks, but it's not the whole thing.
Right.
And you understand at this moment right now, what is my next best step, like you said? What is the next best step? And you're like, this thing.
Right.
Then do that thing, because that's holding up everything else. And once you do that, then you know the next thing. And it's I found it, at least, very easy to move on and to keep, like, oh, I got that done, cool.
Right.
And every time I walk into that office, I can think, oh, look at how far we've come. It's very interesting. I like to as well take pictures as I go,
Oh, cool.
because then you can look back and be like, whoa, a month ago, that's what this place looked like. It was unrecognizable.
Yeah. It's
And you
so
think
helpful.
of how far you've come in that time. It's helpful. Plus,
Yeah.
it helps you know where stuff is.
Well, it helps you build some confidence, though, in the fact that, hey, I do have momentum. It's kind of a proof of work, right?
Yeah.
See, look at everything I did. I am making progress, and then it pushes you to go do it again. Another thing that I really like about this tied to habits is more of like the streak tracker.
Okay.
So it's the idea of, if I want to pick up running, and let's say I want to run 3 days a week, I'm going to do it at 6 a.m. in the morning, whatever it is, I could create a sheet of paper, and I'm just going to check every day that I actually went out for a run.
All right.
And so I can see then how many days did I actually honor that for myself. And then on the days where I'm like, oh, I don't feel like I'm making any progress, I can go back and see like, here's proof of my work.
Oh, you
here's
ran
what
so
I
many
did.
times.
Right.
Okay.
And sometimes even that idea of like, well, I don't want to break my streak is enough to push you into action to do even just one little thing. I have a family friend who's run for something like 1,500 days in a row, which is what? That's like 5 years or something, less than that. But it's one of those things where it doesn't, she might go out and run for 10 minutes, but she ran today.
All right.
She did it. She did a thing. And so now what drives her, she doesn't want to break the streak.
Oh, interesting.
And so she's always making momentum toward that goal. And she's become something along the way now. She didn't identify as a runner before. Now she really does because she proved to herself that she could do this thing every day.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
I suppose it's just like measuring anything else, whether it's height or weight, if you're interested in losing weight or something like that.
Yeah.
If you weigh yourself every day and write it down, then you can see like, oh, I only lost half an ounce today. But over the course of weeks or months, you can see that there's actually progress.
Yeah, you're trending.
And then you don't
want
to lose that.
Yeah.
Or maybe you do of weight, I don't know. But you don't want to lose that progress, that momentum, so you can keep it going.
Yeah.
So it's good to see.
How would it have been if you shared this? Let's say you shared, I have a tenant come in with a buddy, and your buddy said, okay, I'm going to check in with you every couple days and see how you're doing.
Oh.
How would that have changed how you approached getting this office ready?
I probably would have moved faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can tell you as an example, when I was writing my book,
Oh, yeah.
I was telling everybody that I was writing a book just because it comes up in conversation, whatever. As people read, whatever. And I told my mother-in-law, and I would see my mother-in-law once every 3 months, something like that. And she'd always say, hey, James, how's the book coming along? And there were 2 times that I had to be like, I haven't done anything in it. And I had to sit back and think, in 3 months, you didn't do anything? You're not writing a book. You're thinking about writing a book.
Yeah.
So then I knew there were times like, okay, Christmas time, we're going to see mother-in-law. You got to be able to say something. What did you accomplish? You better knock some chapters out. You better get it to the editor. You better get it to the other editor. You better get that cover designed.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to be able to answer that question without saying nothing.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of value in that peer pressure, essentially. But there's also that intrinsic of like, oh, I didn't make progress. It's not even so much them, but it's also well, how does that make me feel about myself? I'm not following through. I'm not doing what I said I was going to do. So there's a lot of help in finding an accountability buddy.
Huge.
Whether it's just a friend or you pick up a coach to help you get where you want to go. There are even groups where you can just be like, I'm going to do this by this by this. Cool, we're going to check in once a week and just email each other how far we've come.
Yeah.
And that can be really helpful because you don't want to disappoint somebody. It's like meeting a friend at the gym, right? If I want to sleep in today, that friend's going to razz me that I didn't show up.
Yeah, when I coached new, I don't want to say entrepreneurs because they were still more green than that. They were thinking about becoming entrepreneurs, thinking about starting a business, all different kinds of businesses.
Sure.
Retail, food, whatever. I would have them exchange phone numbers in groups of 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And then I would have them call. It was Wednesday night class, so I'd have them call each other, or call or text, I guess I gave them the choice, Tuesday afternoon, to say, and I wanted them to ask, did you do your stuff? And the idea was that's either a yes or no question. And if you say yes, that's great. But if they say no, I had everybody write down the number of excuses that they considered acceptable for the other person to tell them. And it was 0. Nobody's like, oh, yeah, there's 7 excuses right now. It's 0. And then I said, tell me how much you'll care if they say no. And most of them were like, not really. And I said, what if you're a group of 4 and you call 3 other people and they all said they did not do your stuff and you hadn't done your stuff yet? How would you feel that you have to do your stuff? No, nobody else is doing it. Why should I? Which means that if you don't do your stuff, you're actually not doing your stuff for you. You're not doing your stuff for everyone else. You're bringing everyone else down. Then let's say 3 people said yes, but you didn't do your stuff yet. Are you going to lie or are you going to cram to get that stuff done?
Right.
You're totally going to cram.
Yeah.
So lift kind of thing. So it's one of those that was very helpful for people. But then you could also see people fell off the bus is what happened because you would have people call They did their job, right? Did you do your stuff? And some people wouldn't respond. Well, you know why they didn't respond,
Because
right?
they didn't do it.
They didn't do it.
Yeah, right.
So then those people, it was an 8-week class. By week 4 or 5, they're out.
Yeah.
They just, you don't kick them out. They just leave on their own.
Right.
Because they know that they're not accomplishing what they said they were going to accomplish. And in the end, I don't care.
Right.
Right? I was volunteering, so.
Well, it's that cognitive dissonance. Again, if I didn't hold up my integrity, I didn't do what I said I was going to do. And I think that one of the things that we miss, a mistake that we tend to make, is that we think if we fall off for a day and we don't make progress, oh shit, well now I just might as well throw the baby out with the
You broke the
bathwater,
whole
right?
thing,
Like,
right?
oh, it's broken. I'm going to start over January 1st, right? Because for some reason we all decide January 1st is when
Yeah,
we're
that's
going to
when
start.
the
Some
big change.
arbitrary, crazy date. But I think it's okay to have some grace and just say, hey, you know what? Life happened yesterday. It is what it is. I'm not going to make excuses. One of the things that I love that a friend of mine says is every excuse is a choice.
Oh, very
And
true.
so it's that idea of like, okay, you didn't do the thing, and you can make an excuse, but you chose not to do the thing. Inaction is action, like you say, which
Totally.
is, it's really helpful when you look at it in that way. But I think what's, I lost my train of thought. Where's it going there? What was I talking about?
I guess I was treating it, or I think of it like a garbage person deals with trash. So if garbage person is 5 days a week,
Yeah.
you're picking up trash, right?
Yep.
But if they miss a day because of Thanksgiving or Labor Day or something like that, do they not have to pick up that trash?
All right, they just come a day late.
They just have to work twice as hard on the days before and after.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So it's the same amount of work regardless of the time that you take.
Right.
So, which can be frustrating if you're a trash driver.
But have you ever noticed that, let's say you have a goal of doing the dishes every day because you're going to keep the house clean even if you hate doing the dishes. What happens if you don't do them today is now when you go do them tomorrow, you have a sink full. And if you don't do them for 2 days, then you come back and you have 3 days worth of dishes, and now you're like, oh crap, this feels so heavy and hard. Whereas if you just would have done them the first day and done them
lighter.
every day, it is much lighter. And you still got to do the thing. You still got to pick up and catch it up.
Right. Yeah, whether you procrastinate or not.
Yeah.
But it's just maintaining, right?
Right. And then giving yourself a little grace, I think, to say, we're all not perfect. We all don't take the action we want to, but don't let the fact that things pile up on you be the reason you don't start.
Right. So I think a good action step here, if I may,
Please.
is have the viewers find a friend or maybe even someone that they're won't give them the easy out.
Yeah.
Tell them what they want their goal or what their goal is and when they're going to accomplish it, and then ask that friend or person what their goal is, and then you become your own accountability partners.
Yeah, I love that.
Costs nothing but a little bit of time, and you have someone that will not let you say no. I
Well,
didn't do my stuff, right?
Now you know your homework.
Whoop-de-whoop.
So today we've talked about how to create momentum to whatever your goal is and take some daily action and be held accountable.
Thank you for watching Diary of a Worthy Pursuit. Make sure you comment, share, and give it the big old thumbs up here.